Hello and welcome everyone. A new episode of Money Means Business. Investment, direct and indirect investments, whether from Egyptian Arab investors or by foreign investors. We are an investment hub. Egypt has a lot of potentials and we do have a lot of hopes, ambitions, not dreams, no, ambitions, and we do not have ceiling. We are going all the time to look forward for more. This is going to be the core of our episode today, and we are going to speak, as I said, not about dreams, but about steps taken on the ground with tangible results, inshallah, not so far. We are planning for the future, but also we are planning whether for the short time planning or long-term plans. Right after this, we are going to be with my dear guest live here in the studio to speak in more details about investments in Egypt, so stay tuned.
The corona pandemic revealed cracks in the economic interdependence between the countries of the world, and the war in Ukraine led to a major crisis in food supplies and commodity markets, prompting experts to say that globalization has receded. Is a new world order beginning to form? The International Monetary Fund expects that the current inflationary pressure will continue until 2023, leading to more concerns about the global economic recession. However, despite the economic problems surrounding emerging markets, including Egypt, it's striving to attract more investments with the aim of reviving the economy, raising the growth rate, and working to reach unemployment rates to the levels before the corona. In the past weeks, indications emerged confirming Egypt's effort to revive the economy, as Dr. Mustafa Madbouli met with a delegation of Turkish companies operating in various fields of investment in Egypt or wishing to start new investments in the Egyptian market during the next stage. The Turkish companies, which were met by the Prime Minister, work in the areas of developing industrial zones, spinning and weaving, ready-made clothes, sportswear, medical preparations, and electrical appliances. Madbouli expressed thanks to all Turkish companies that have invested in Egypt over the past years and welcomed new companies that intend or have already taken steps to start their business in Egypt, stressing that Turkish investments will always receive full care and support. The Minister of Trade and Industry stated that the investments of Turkish companies in Egypt exceed $2 billion, and they will work to increase to the extent that characterizes the relations between the two countries. In another context, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli visited the state of Qatar, during which he met with senior officials in order to promote the investment opportunities available in Egypt in light of the state ownership document, as well as the areas that Egypt seeks to exit from. During his meeting with a delegation of Qatari businessmen, the Prime Minister indicated that trade exchange has witnessed remarkable development in recent years, as it achieved a level of 350 million Qatari riyals in 2022 compared to 239 million riyals in 2021, a growth rate of 46%, and compared to 159 million riyals in 2020 with a growth rate of 46%, growth reached 120%. Stressing that the Egyptian efforts to attract investments were admired by Qatari businessmen who expressed their happiness in cooperating with the Egyptian government during the coming period. He mentioned that the Egyptian Prime Minister talked about some efforts encouraging investment, such as the Golden License that works to accomplish business through uncomplicated procedures that can be completed within a few days, in addition to the Egyptian state's exit from some sectors to provide investment opportunities for the private sector. In the framework of seeking to attract more investments, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with the Prime Minister of Hungary, and during a press conference, the Prime Minister of Hungary announced that cooperation with Egypt will take place in the field of industry, commenting that they will not sell products only, but they will come here to form joint Hungarian-Egyptian companies and manufacture in Egypt, and they are home to wonderful and excellent industries of a high standard. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi also stressed the exchange of experiences in the fields of agriculture, water management and irrigation, and the implementation of the contract concluded for the supply of 1,350 railway cars. He also stressed the great benefit accruing to Hungarian investors in investing in Egypt, especially the economic zone of the Suez Canal. Within the framework of the investment reward, the Egyptian government received requests to export fruits and vegetables to Turkey and Syria, especially after the earthquake crisis that hit the two countries. Egyptian exporters received requests from Syria and Turkey to export some crops to the two countries, such as potatoes, onions, and citrus fruits of all kinds. Within the framework of the investment party, Egypt, Bahrain, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates signed 12 agreements and partnerships in 9 integrated industrial projects with an investment value exceeding $2 billion in the sectors of agriculture, medicine, minerals, chemicals, and electric cars on the sidelines of the conclusion of the third meeting of the Higher Committee for the Integrated Industrial Partnership for Sustainable Economic Development, which it hosted. Egypt Phosphate also signed work contracts with the United Arab Emirates to implement a $400 million project, which is the establishment of an industrial complex for feed and chemicals. A memorandum of understanding was signed for the supply of potash with the Arab Potash Company in Jordan and the supply of phosphate from the Misr Phosphate Company, animal feed and potash fertilizers, and 1.1 tons annually for chemicals. Likewise, the Egyptian company Soda Chemical Industries announced an investment of $500 million to produce sodium carbonate, which is the main raw material in the manufacture of glass and detergents. Engineer Ahmed Samir, Minister of Trade and Industry, affirmed that the economic crises the world is currently going through and the negative repercussions of these successive crises on level of growth and production showed the inevitability of achieving Arab industrial integration and strengthening regional partnership between Arab countries.
Welcome back. We are very much delighted to have with us live here in the studio Dr. Said Kholy, Professor of Economics and former Dean of the Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University. Thank you very much for being with us, sir. And let's start immediately, but I think every Egyptian, there's something in his or her heart related to Sinai one way or another. And when it comes to Sinai, we're speaking about a very dear part of our land, and it really occupies such a position, whether regarding to its distance, regarding to the area, regarding to the way Sinai is back or returned back to us by the sacrifices of our soldiers, our army, our security personnel in general. And here I'm not speaking only about October's victory in 1973, but also about our war to fight terrorism, and this took such 10 years or something, and thank God we have regained Sinai once again to be completely ours, far from criminals, far from terrorists, far from those who wanted to take this very dear part from us, from the Egyptians. And recently, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi was keen to go to El Ismailia and to inspect himself the lineup of equipment to participate in the development process of Sinai. And there was a very important statement which was said and repeated again and again. We are fighting terrorism not only with the security solution, but with development. How do you see developing and reconstructing Sinai as part and parcel of fighting terrorism and playing a key role in our economic development in general?
We all agree Sinai is historical wise. It's already part of Egypt from thousands of years ago, and it was occupied during the war of 67, but we regained it again after 1973 October Great War. Let me tell you, Sinai by itself, not with any other government, it is able, if we really heavily invest in agriculture, invest in industrial, in especially mineral industry, Sinai filled with a lot of raw material and resources. If we really establish an industrial base, an industrial complex in Sinai, we'll be able to attract people from the mainland to Sinai. It's already started, and we have heavy industry already, especially mining industry. It started 3 years ago in Sinai. And remember, in order to connect Sinai with the mainland, it was only one tunnel goes from Suez or Ismailia to Sinai, and Salam Bridge. But now we have a lot of means of infrastructure. It's already done in Sinai. We have about 4 tunnels. We have more bridges. We have, even by sea, we have a connection between the mainland and Sinai. In order to really build an industrial zone in Sinai, you must have a logistic in order to transport whatever this to Nuweiba, for example, port, or for Alexandria port, or for Dumyat port. You have to build a logistic means. And the logistic means, it means here, whether it's by land, transportation, and so on, to facilitate the whatever we produce over there. And we used to really export raw materials. Now, thanks God, for the last couple of 3 years, for the last 3 years, we started to make a transformation from raw materials to add value to it in order to export product, not raw material. And the return of that will be heavily. Also, they started the development in all social activity, like the building over there, public school, university also.
All public
and
services,
healthcare.
healthcare, education, of course, developing the infrastructure in general, roads, access, free roads, free highways, tunnels. This was my common question regarding the keenness of the state to connect Sinai to the Delta, to connect Sinai to the rest of Egypt. To what extent do you think that this was very much important these days? I mean, the timing of doing this and the impact on this on all aspects of life, whether it's industrial, it's commercial, it's social, it's even cultural, you name it.
Of course, when we build an industrial base and agriculture base in Sinai, we build a new community. It's not only Sinai people, but a lot of people, in order to accommodate this new investment, which is heavily investment, which it needs hundreds of thousands of workforce. And to transform from mainland to Sinai, you build a social life over there. And we talked about the infrastructure in terms of housing, education, healthcare, and all of that. Education, whether it's public school up to high school and university.
Universities too, yeah.
Also, we start to have about 3 universities now in Sinai. Sinai, it's really, if you take a look at for the structure of Sinai, we have several means to invest in Sinai. For example, from Sharm el-Sheikh, South Sinai is considered to be a safe haven for tourism. In the middle of Sinai, we have a lot of mineral, and even with the eastern side, which is, we can use it as a port to be able to transform our product or to transport our product and service to the Middle East, to the Gulf state, to the European nation also. And that is the importance of the infrastructure. Another thing, which is the most important thing in order to attract foreign direct investment, is security and safety. If you recall, 10 years ago, it was really for terrorism, it was a safe haven for them in Sinai. But now, after really, and thanks God for our military forces, which we got rid of almost 100% safe right now and secure our border and so on. So in order for foreign direct investment to come to invest in Sinai, we have the infrastructure, we have the power supply already, which we have in excess of power supply in order to attract this foreign direct investment. When I talk about direct foreign direct investment, I mean here certain thing which really concentrate in mining industry. Why? Because most of the materials already, the raw materials, and it's already exist in Sinai. In terms of tourism,
Land of turquoise. And,
absolutely, yeah.
and here I prefer, or I think that it's going to be purely Egyptian. Sinai is ours.
Absolutely.
And we can have exchange of expertise. Of course, this is completely acceptable, but to own something there, it's only for Egyptian. Sinai or any border province, it's of course, or this is what's implemented on the ground, it's purely Egyptian. Part of our national security, of course. And but going to the Suez Canal and the industrial zone there, the industrial zones there, we are going, of course, to return back to Egyptian and Arab investors and the very big opportunities in front of them in many domains here in Egypt. But let's focus on something which, as I said in my intro, implemented on the ground. After the recent visit by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and his meetings with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and other Egyptian senior officials, the General Authority of the Suez Canal Economic Zone and the Hungarian Export Promotion Agency signed already on Tuesday, meaning just 3 days ago, a memorandum of understanding for joint cooperation by the end of a session of the Egyptian-Hungarian Joint Business Forum, in which a number of Egyptian and Hungarian ministers and senior officials attended. Several bilateral meetings among different companies from both sides, promotional presentations of investment opportunities available in various fields, and of course, both sides lauded and hailed the historic ties that bind the two nations. How do you see this, sir, implemented on the ground and being said in the media? We are that transparent to let all people know that there are memoranda of understanding signs, and it's going to be implemented on the ground as soon as possible, because we want to have all the time a win-win situation.
Absolutely. We're talking here about strategic alliance.
Yes.
Of course, all this new industry, it really depends on new technology. We are talking about green industry. And remember, with Belgium, for example, during COP 27, we signed agreement for introducing the green hydrogen with the assistance between Egypt and Belgium. And now we have the Hungarian coming to invest. And when Hungarian come to Egypt, they invest in heavy industry, not consuming industry. Heavy industry, it means you produce and you design machinery in order to be able to use it in manufacturing product and service. And that is moving, switching, and that's a good switch, moving from consuming industry to manufacturing industry. And this depends on state-of-the-art technology. And when you build a strategic alliance, you don't have all aspects, of course. We have here attracting factors, like, as we mentioned, the infrastructure, security, and so on, excessive capacity. Also, one of the most important factors in reducing the cost for materials and for equipment and so on is labor. And we have the lowest cost labor cost in the region,
Manpower.
in Egypt. The manpower is very important, and it's well-trained workforce at the same time, and will be able to attract Egypt, my belief, in the future with the new vision of President Sisi, and with really opening the road for opening not only for local investor or Arab investors, which it has been done in the last few years as economical investment, as real estate investment, and so on. Now we are looking and we are focusing on manufacturing investment and the heavy industry, and that it depends. It require sharings, as you mentioned, win-win situation. They can provide us with the technology, management, and so on, and we can provide them with security, infrastructure, power supply, and low labor cost. And that is a win-win situation. If you take this model, which it happened in many countries, and it went from a very less developed country to a developed country, that's what really happened. So we cannot do it all by ourselves. We have to really make more and more strategic alliance, whether it's Belgium, whether it's Hungarian, whether it's any other nation, and so on. So again and again, depending on only one source of income for Egypt is not good enough. We have to be able to utilize our agriculture sector. We have to really revive our industrial sector in all different aspects. If you remember when President Sisi visited India, now we have information technology industry, which it depends on what we call it as the fourth industrial revolution. That is a new trend in industry. That's a new trend in green industry, and that's a new for us. So all of this, it is important to really rethink about our educational system in order to cope with the future, with this development, whether it's a green industry, whether it is a green environment, and so on. We have to integrate this coming industry to Egypt and revise our educational system in order to provide for the investor, whether it's a local investor, whether it's Arab investor.
To qualify human cadres who can lead these new sectors. But if you permit me, because this is very important, I'd like to return back to this memoranda of understanding which was signed recently, as I said, and to have the quotes of the two ministers from Egypt and from Hungary who signed the memoranda. Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, Minister of International Cooperation, stressing that the involvement of the private sector and increasing its role in development efforts is a top priority for the Egyptian government. And in his speech, for his part, the Hungarian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade emphasized the importance and distinction of the joint Egyptian-Hungarian relations and the determination of Hungary to push towards more partnerships of the governmental level as well as the private sector. They both agreed that the private sector, whether here or there, they should have a line share. There should be what we call a strategic partnership between the private and public sectors, whether in Egypt or in Hungary, and this is to be implemented on the ground also whether here or there, and this was said by governmental top officials. How do you see this, sir?
Now we are talking about market economy, and market economy is simply, it depends on private sector, which is, if you recall, for example, with the economical summit which President Sisi announced like a few months ago, which it really brought all people from private sector, and we start to have a dialogue between the government and the private sector. What you need in order to help you, for example, the delay of a new project, for example, license and so on, which it used to take years and so on to approve it. Now we have the middle license, the gold license, which is announced by President Sisi and Dr. Mustafa Mabouli, where it takes a few weeks in order to establish
even less than
a new
that.
business.
Yes.
And less than that, and we need less than that. We need to be minutes you can get approval. Of course, that is a responsibility for the government, is to, beside all different aspects we talked about for reviving our industrial and agricultural sector, with the infrastructure, with all different things we mentioned, the process have to simplify the process. We have to simplify and speed the process in order to attract more and more foreign direct investment. I believe in the future, if we really reduce the lead time from approving a new business or a new memorandum of understanding or joint venture or a strategic alliance, you can call it in any means, we have to shorten the lead time. The more you shorten the lead time, the more you attract more and more foreign direct investment. The reason I'm saying that, because we have a problem all over the world now with the supply chain, because of the Russian-Ukrainian war, and it really affects the shortage of materials and so on from one country to another country. So in order to establish that in Egypt, I believe Egypt in the future, it will be hub for industrial sector, for Egyptian people, and we can be able to export. And when you export, you increase your hard currency. When you increase your hard currency, the value of the Egyptian pound, it will come back to its place again.
And every factor of those is going to lead to the other.
Absolutely.
And this is to continue the circle of what we call sustainable development.
Absolutely.
Sir, returning back to the word hub, here I want to also again and again speak about Egypt as an energy hub, and to speak again and again about investment in new, if I may say, or relatively new fields, new horizons. For example, this is another example. Germany is keen to import more LNG from Egypt. Of course, here I'm talking about liquefied natural gas. These were the statements which were released recently by German ambassador in Cairo, His Excellency Hartmann. Germany is keen to import larger quantities of liquefied natural gas to be used in homes, in industry. German ambassador to Cairo, Frank Hartmann, said in a press conference this week after a 5-day visit to Upper Egypt's Aswan. Sir, again, since of course we mentioned, and I think that we are going to mention all the time, this war between Russia and Ukraine and its negative repercussions on the whole world's economies, whether developed or developing. Here, when it comes to LNG or liquefied natural gas, Egypt can be, or on the way to be an energy hub. And these were the statements, as I said, by His Excellency Ambassador to Germany in Egypt. How do you see this, and how do you see, again, focusing on that in the meantime because of this crisis, which I think is going to continue at least for the time being, and with our strategic relations between us, between Egypt and other Western allies? How do you see benefiting from our strong relations with the West, and how do you see benefiting from the crisis which is taking place started a year ago and is going, unfortunately, to continue at least for months to come?
I believe Egypt is considered as energy hub right now for our neighbor country. We export power supply for many Arab nations to Jordan and many other countries. And it's already started, and we'll be able to have a lot of inventory from that, and we'll be able to send it to Europe. Remember, the Russian-Ukrainian war affected heavily the power supply for country, and mostly Germany, and that it's affected by it. But now, which we already have it, Egypt, it have an excess of their power supply, not only gas and oil and so on, but also in renewable energy. Renewable energy in terms of wind, in terms of solar electricity and so on. And now we are investing heavily in green power supply also. And I believe that is an opportunity for Egypt right now. I don't consider the Russian-Ukrainian war a threat for our industrial base, but I consider it as an opportunity. We have to invest in that opportunity, take it as an opportunity to be able to really be part of the supply chain in terms of electricity, in terms of materials, in terms of agriculture product and so on. As you mentioned, it is sustainable development. And we really, what we need now is to increase the value stream, to add value for whatever we have right here, and see what our competitive priority and our competitive advantage, and we can really focus on that for European nation. In your statement with the Western Europe, now President Sisi is not looking for one country and avoid another country. He's been to Eastern Europe, as you recall, a couple of years ago, and for Western Europe, for Asia, for example, India, China, Russia, we have really a strategic alliance with all different partners from. So we are not part with this part or that part, but we are working in all different angles in order to improve our economical sector. I am optimistic. Maybe we have a problem right now with the inflation and with the increase of prices and so on.
Who doesn't?
But
who doesn't have problem with inflation worldwide?
Absolutely. But we're working very hard in order to really reduce that. Remember, when we have a lot of foreign direct investment. We build the industry. It needs a lot of employees, it needs a lot of workforce, and that is by its, as a result, it will reduce the unemployment rate, it will increase the quality of life, but all of this doesn't come overnight. It takes
Sure.
time. When you invest in heavy industry or industrial area with industry, for example, the cycle time for getting a result from any industrial project, it takes time. My estimated time is 3 to 5 years. So we started 3 years ago, and my belief, and that's why I'm saying, Anna, I'm optimistic. It's simply because we are going to see the fruit of this investment within
And
the
we do
next
have accumulative activities, sir. I
Absolutely.
mean, His Excellency, the ambassador of Germany in Egypt, when he talked like that after his visit to Aswan last November already, there were 2 memos of understanding signed between Egypt and Germany in the production of green hydrogen and the LNG, meaning that we started already and we are gaining the fruits a day after the other or a year after the other, but we started already. And before leaving this visit by the German ambassador to Aswan, he also saw himself part of the initiative of Decent Life or Hayat Karima, the presidential initiative implemented in many villages of Aswan. And he said that Germany supports the Egyptian presidential initiative, hailing the government's work on this initiative and infrastructure projects. This is also to say that if we are going through national projects, constructing national projects, developing our infrastructure, but also when it comes to the low-income brackets, they are not forgotten. And Decent Life initiative aims at giving better quality of life to nearly 50 million Egyptians. How do you see moving in both directions in the very same time?
I consider it Decent Life initiative, and that is not what I'm saying, but the United Nations consider it as a worldwide model. And Egypt really, when we talk about Decent Life initiative, it means we are moving from welfare to workfare. Welfare, it means you give subsidy and so on, but now you give them the opportunity to establish their very small business with the guarantee of the government, with the providing them a low interest rate in order to establish their own business. I'm talking about here a very, very, very small business. Remember, the intention now, it is for working women in this kind of, whether it's Upper Egypt and in Minya, for example, in Sohag, which it happened a few days ago.
We will speak about
to
in Minya, of
empower
course.
women in order to really depend on self. It is not only building houses or giving subsidy for food and so on. No, it is moving from welfare to workfare, and there is a huge difference. Instead of subsidized, no, we establish and encourage, empower people, train people, and so on. So, Decent Life initiative, it is the vision is bigger than what you see right now. It is very, very big, and that's why the United Nations consider it as a role model for social responsibility worldwide. And the really we gain, for example, Guinness record for that and so on. And if you recall, in many countries, I visit many countries, they have really a problem with the low income population and so on. In Egypt now, you can really, I have friend of, for example, they told me the speed of the internet fiber optic, it's already in this rural area in Upper Egypt and so on. And that is the new quality of life the government to provide them. And all of that is really, it comes from the integration with the NGO, for example, and they working as not separate entity, but as a group now, right now, unified, correlated, and so on, in order to provide a high quality for social responsibility and so on.
And we call it concerned bodies. Those concerned bodies can be public, private, civil societies, you name it, all for the sake or for the best interest of the Egyptian citizen, and that's
Absolutely.
it. and to go to El as you kindly mentioned, because just 2 days ago, on Thursday, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was keen to celebrate himself, or to be himself there, to celebrate the completion of many developmental projects in El. And in the past 8 years, so many places, villages, cities, towns there enjoyed the completion of those projects, again, for the best interest of the Egyptian people. Sir, before going into these details, because I do have many statistics here, that's not all, as Minya is part of the 1.5 million fedans, 272 millions were the cost of establishing an industrial complex regarding manufacturing or industry, to farms or to raising cattle, 450 cattle to small farmers to enhance the breeds, a lot of statistics. But you know what was really amazing? The youth. Empowering the youth. Empowering women. Thinking out of the box. Innovative ideas. Knowing well that you can share and you can build your future by your own hand, and you can be face to face with the president, with the head of a state, exchanging a very fatherly dialogue. Sir, how do you see such events?
That's a leadership, ma'am. The leadership of President Sisi is simply to give the hope for people in order to do it themselves. And that is a mega transformation from welfare to workfare. Let them part of development. Let these people train them, upgrade their knowledge and so on, giving them all the incentive. As you mentioned, is in a very small, giving cow, and use this cow instead of 1 cow to be 2 or 3 and so on. And when he gave them the freedom to think, and I always say, when there is a will, there is a drive. Create the will for these people, and they will work very hard. You talk about youth, 60% of our population is youth population. Mm-hmm. So we are promising nation in order to produce more and more in the future. Mm-hmm. Not only in Minya, not only in Sohag, not only in all the, but in all over Egypt, we have to work together in order to really enhance our economical development. It's not only the government by itself, or the public sector by itself, or private sector by itself. We call all Egyptians to put hand on hand in order to really overcome any crisis which we affected by the world problem. Mm-hmm. So we have to work all together.
Amen to that, sir. Very well said. And to something else which was very eye-catchy, if I may say, to inaugurate a recycling and biofuel factory. And this was in El. This is to say that our culture now is different, that we are witnessing social changes. Now, people in Upper Egypt are that much aware of the importance of this, of recycling, of biofuel, meaning that they are environment friendly, meaning that we do now have new horizons of investments, invading new markets, taking into consideration that we are coping, or we are all the time aware of what's going on around us. We are coping with the changes. We are coping with the challenges, if I may say, because we are all the time surrounded by very speedy changes, and we should go hand in hand with these changes. How do you see this?
I believe President Sisi, he goes in the fast track. And when you go with the fast track, all the people behind him, he have to go with the same fast track. Fast track mean here, it really, we are focusing on Egypt, for example, hosted COP27 last year in Sharm el-Sheikh, and we take it in really implementation. And President Sisi said that is the year for implementation, not memorandum of, but we do it, we just have to do it in order to save our environment, in order to reduce the pollution and so on. So public awareness is very important. With recycling of material, we eliminate waste in terms of even consumption. We used to consume more and more, and it's not usable. We like 30% what we purchase, it goes for waste. So in order to really go with the speed of President Sisi, we have to reconsider our consumption behavior, our needs and so on has to be changed, and the government, it has to really work with the same speed with President Sisi. President Sisi, he means well for the Egyptian people. We want Egypt to be standing not only developed or less developed, but developing country in the future and so on. Of course, we have a lot of resources, but we have to be more efficient to use our resources. So that is the efficiency. Efficiency, it simply means best use of our resources. Up to this point of time, we started to look to add value for our resources in order to increase the return of our investment, whether in industry, agriculture, and many other aspects in education, healthcare, and so on.
Sir, one final question regarding education. What's now of the top priorities is to have education suitable for this geographic area. I mean, for example, in New Delta, we do have agricultural mega projects, so we need the faculties of agriculture to receive larger numbers of students to be able to lead or to be the human capital responsible for such a project. In other places, we do have industrial zones, so we do have here engineers. In others, we even should have near El Dab'a nuclear engineers because of our nuclear plant there. How do you see this geographic distribution of the specialized colleges or schools to be able to lead or to be the human cadres leading these projects scattered all over Egypt?
A few days ago, the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Ayman Ashur, he announced a new strategy for higher education in Egypt. And of course, you need to do a market analysis. What we need for health care, for example, engineering and so on. And that is what I call it as a push system. Push system, it means you go finish high school and with NC and so on, you get, no, it has to be what is our needs, what is our vision for the future. We have transformation to force revolution, industrial revolution, and force industrial revolution need new technology, need new how, and so on. So we have to equip ourselves with this kind of advances in technology, in know-how, in information technology, and we have to upgrade our curriculum, and we have to study our market, what is needing. So when we talk about foreign direct investment, we have to build for us a mind map, what is the future need from us, and what specialization we must be able to provide in order to cope with this foreign direct investment as with new project. So we have to really restructure our educational system in public school, as you mentioned. In Mania, for example, they have one of the most important aspects, which is STEM school, for example, which is now, for example, Al-Ubur school, it was number one.
These are scattered all over Egypt, and inshallah we are going to gain the fruits of all these efforts in the very near future. This is the new Egypt, the new Republic, Egypt 2030. Dr. Said, thank you very much for being with us, sir. You are always an added value to our program.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We were very much delighted to have Dr. Said Kholy, Professor of Economics and former Dean of Faculty of Commerce at Shams University. And we are going now to live with the most important economic events which took place in the past 7 days. By this, we come to the end of our episode. Stay tuned on Nile TV International always for more. This was Nurmina Abdurrahman. Many thanks for watching.
The Committee for Automatic Pricing of Petroleum Products raised the current prices prevailing in the local market with the exception of diesel. The increase included the three types of gasoline products to 8.75 pounds per litre of 80 gasoline, 10.25 pounds per litre of 92 gasoline, and 11.50 pounds per litre of 95 gasoline, as well as the selling price of a ton of diesel for non-electrical users. and bakers to £6,000 per tonne, and fixing the selling price of diesel at £7.25 per square metre, in addition to gas supply for cars to become £4.50 per metre, and this is the first increase in car gas since October 2021. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi announced that the minimum wage for state workers will be increased, as those in the 6th job grade and its equivalent will receive £3,500 per month, and employees in the 3rd grade will receive £5,000, and holders of a master's degree among state workers will receive £6,000, and PhD holders £7,000. Pensions will also be increased by 15% starting from the 1st of April 2023, and the annual tax exemption limit will be raised from £24,000 to £30,000, and the financial groups benefiting from solidarity and dignity will increase by 25% per month starting from the 1st of April. The Credit Suisse Bank's research unit monitored the performance of some indicators of the Egyptian economy, particularly exports, tourism, debt levels, the currency rate, and the money market. The bank believes that the actual exchange rate is undervalued by about 30%, which is equivalent to only £23.8 in the long run, as the fair value measured at the real effective exchange rate indicates its rise over the past 12 months to about 24 Egyptian pounds. Tahya Misr station in Alexandria port received one of the giant ships on the station's berths after the start of the trial operation of the station, which is considered the most important maritime transport project being implemented. Ships with more than 1,000 containers handled during the first half of February. The head of the Egyptian Stock Exchange said that he hopes that the e-finance offering for financial and digital investments will be an appetite for more government and private offerings during the coming period, as e-finance for financial and digital investments seeks expansion in foreign markets in cooperation with the Saudi Sovereign Fund. The company works in the field of remittances cash for the Egyptian government amounting to £2.1 trillion. The recent period, due to the tensions between the United States and India on the one hand and China on the other hand, Egypt has become a very attractive interface for mobile phone manufacturers. During the past year, Egypt succeeded in attracting 3 major phone manufacturers to open factories for them in Egypt. The state began to intervene in order to provide attractiveness. Egypt and the settlement of the industry when the House of Representatives approved legislative amendments that will exempt a large number of components of mobile phones and their manufacturing inputs from the state resource development fee of 5% with tariffs reduced to 0% for some. The project is located in the Ras Gharib and Ras Shuqair regions north of the Red Sea to establish 12 tanks within one of the largest storage warehouses for crude oil in Egypt and the Middle East, out of 4 areas in the Eastern Desert, with a total of 29 tanks at a total cost of £4 billion, with an estimated more than 1,000 pounds. 1 million barrels of oil, meaning that the quantity stored in 29 tanks will reach about 26.4 million barrels, making it the largest oil storage project in Egypt. The financial statements of the Central Bank of Egypt at the end of December 2022 showed net profits of £1.058 billion, and it is mentioned that the financial statements of the Central Bank in December 2021 showed losses of £45.501 billion. It negatively affected the financial position of the central bank in previous years. 50% Egyptian components, and pointed out that he had spoken with the company's leaders to increase the local component. Cars in the industrial zone of Ataqa. Major General Sakr confirmed that Suez Governorate welcomes any investments on its land, expressing his happiness and gratitude for the investments of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the land of Egypt, stressing that the final product includes 60% Egyptian components, and pointed out that he had spoken with the company's leaders to increase the local component.